Thank you for staying with us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Niranjan and I'm filling in for Arnab Goswami, who will be back in a short while. But on the show at 9 p.m. tonight, we wanted to get you some facts about the way this entire situation has played out in Indian aviation with the Indigo emergency all of today. Over 1,000 flights have been cancelled as of this minute. Only today, you had 550 flights that were cancelled yesterday. 1,000 flights and more today. And the most shocking aspect of it is that Indigo says it was planned. Indigo says we decided to cancel these flights to align our crews and our planes, which means Indigo had a plan and Indigo's plan was to cancel them so that starting midnight or tomorrow, all the flights, or most of them at least, will be back on track. But let's get you some facts before we get you the full story of how the government caved in. Some of the pointers on how the week started this in Indian aviation. This week started with an unprecedented aviation crisis with thousands stranded in choked airports. And the week ended with the DGCA quietly rolling back what is one of the most important fatigue protection rules for pilots, or the FTDL. A rule that barred airlines essentially from counting leave as weekly rest, which many pilots have been asking for so that safety of passenger travel is not compromised. And this decision today was presented as a temporary operational relief when eventually the government and the airline regulator gave out their press release. But the subtext, ladies and gentlemen, very impossible to miss. The regulator has blinked under pressure from India's largest airline. That's a little bit of a background of the technical reasons and what has been happening in the background of the Indigo emergency. Here's the story, the full story of how the government caved in, and then we have a debate at 9 p.m.
Chaos, cancellation, catastrophe, or an unavoidable crisis. In January of 2024, the DGCA revised the flight duty time limitation rules, bringing pilot rest times to global standards. In May of 2024, the government notified the rules. That was 553 days ago. The rules ensured pilots get 48 hours of weekly rest, extending night duty times till 6 a.m. in the morning and limiting night landings for pilots only to 2 per week, with no more than 2 consecutive night duties. All measures aim to ease off pilot fatigue, a leading cause attributed behind aircraft incidents. These new norms were to kick in 2 phases, from July 1, 2025 and November 1, 2025. As soon as the new norms kicked in, Indigo's flight operations went for a toss. Of the 1,232 flights that Indigo recklessly cancelled in November, 61% were due to crew shortage. Despite this, Indigo went ahead to add 1,323 new flights per week ahead of the busy winter season. A reckless decision despite crew shortages. To put that into context, Akasa and SpiceJet roughly operate the same number of flights per week, meaning Indigo added another airline worth of flights without the crew roster capacity. Reports suggest Indigo was also under tremendous financial pressure, with net loss increasing to Rs 2,582 crore in Q2 of the fiscal year 2026, adding market pressure to increase the capacity. With over 1,000 flights now cancelled in a single day, questions are being asked. Did Indigo know? Amidst pressure following the passenger outrage. The government today caved into the pressure exerted by Indigo, rolling back the clause no leave shall be substituted for weekly rest from the FDTL norms. Not just that, DGCA also gave Indigo a 30-day period to comply with the new norms. While every other airline complies, Indigo got a free pass. While the Minister for Civil Aviation is conspicuously silent, Indigo CEO broke his silence with a template apology and more bad news. Delays will continue for another 10 days.
FDTL implementation relief is great help. It will take some time to return to a full normal situation, which we do anticipate between the 10th and the 15th of December.
Did Indigo willfully cascade the crisis with route additions? Was this an attempt to force the government to roll back the norms? Did Indigo think it was too big to fail? Has the government failed the citizen with the aviation disaster?
Okay, joining us on the debate this evening, quickly, Captain C.S. Randhawa, President, Federation of Indian Pilots, live in Delhi. Ajay Bagga, he's a political commentator, also a markets expert. Captain Ehsan Khalid, veteran Indian Air Force pilot, former commander of Boeing 737 NG fleet, I beg your pardon. Sanjay Laza, an aviation expert, joining us on the debate. And Parvez Damania will be joining us soon. Lokesh Jindal, Sanat Kaul, Chairman, International Foundation for Aviation, Aerospace and Drones. Rajiv Mehra, General Secretary and former President of FAITH, which is the Federation of Association in Indian Tourism and Hospitality, completes the panel. I'd like to start with Sanjay Lazar, because I know he's got to leave a little early. Okay, let me start with some points. I'd like to place a few facts on record. Many people have been looking at the pictures and videos of what's been happening, don't know the background, Sanjay. But I wanted to, put some facts on the table of whether Indigo had an advance warning or not. Did we know what was coming? Of course they knew. In fact, the rules were notified in January. The DGCA revised these limits in January 2024. DGCA rules were notified in May 2024. Initially, airlines were asked to comply from June 2024. DGCA deferred the rollout for a year in 2 phases. Phase 1, July 2025, and now November 2025. They had time. It's not like they didn't know what was coming, Sanjay. They knew exactly what was going to happen. And yet, they let it happen. Sanjay.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Thank you for having me on your show. And it's as though they waited for the chips to fall. They knew exactly, like you said, in January of 2024. Last April, May, June, they were trying to bring it in. Eventually, they asked for time. It came to this year in 2025. July, phase 1 was implemented. They were all well aware of what the requirement would be, what their standard force was needed to be, and what would happen if they did. And please note, from summer to winter 2025, they've increased their number of flights by over 1,000, almost 1,000 flights. So obviously they knew that there was going to be, they had adequate staff, or if they did not, they were still just pushing the envelope to block slots. And I think it's highly irregular for an airline of the size and reputation and monopoly of Indigo to have done something like this. I believe there needs to be a deep investigation. And I think, unfortunately, you're right, the DGCA has buckled. So has the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Maybe they're, trying to save face during this period of, Christmas, New Year, holiday season, wedding, etc. But that's no excuse, because this DGCA pilot car, FDTL, has been hanging fire for some years now. And it's been in courts for a couple of years as well. The FIP had filed a case. Captain Randhawa is on the panel. I'm sure he will speak more about that. But when it's only aligning Indian systems with global systems, it's not that you're giving pilots some relaxation on tough working hours. You're just bringing them on par with the rest of the world. So why then is this huge resistance.
So does that essentially mean, perhaps Captain Randhawa can also be, come into this, because what we're essentially doing by going back to the old norms is playing with the pilot safety here. There has always been a complaint, perhaps Captain Randhawa, you could, elaborate on this, that for the longest time, with these norms at place, what we have essentially done is made our pilots work inhuman hours.
See, first and foremost, I would like to say that, when the DGCA was not implementing the FDTL CR, which was scientifically made by them, then ultimately we were in court since 2019 on this FDTL CR. And when we approached the High Court that DGCA is not trying to implement this, finally the verdict came around April this year, and in which they were told to totally implement the CR. And thereafter, the DGC again called all the airlines that when should we implement? We wanted an immediate implementation as per the court order. However, still, DGC asked the airlines, when would you like? So they dictated terms that the 60% of the CR should be implemented on 1st of July and the 40% should be implemented on 1st of November. This all airlines had agreed by DGCA. And why did DGCA ask them? And this is a safety measure. Now, the FDTL limits, you must understand, it is the limit. FDTL, what does it mean? It's the limit. Supposing I have to do 8 hours of flight duty time, then 8 hours is the limit. Do the airlines also have to go to 8 hours? That is the limit. The airline should cut off before that. But no airline is doing it. Sorry to say. And let me tell you, today with the meeting with the minister, we said there has to be criminal proceedings against the people at the senior management of Indigo for having planned and masterminded this fiasco in the country. They need to be implicated. And
sir, I'll tell you the more shocking aspect. No, what hit me, Captain Randhawa, is the language and the tone of the Indigo CEO, okay? He said something which just hit me. He said that this entire thing was planned. He said we cancelled the planes. So he admitted that the cancellations were known to align the plane and the crews, okay? He says that. And then he says we did it to align it, but the FDTL then becomes incidental because anyway by tonight they were going to align it.
Correct. This is what I have been saying since last 3 days. There's much more to it. It is not the FDTL. It is not shortage of crews. It cannot lead to so many cancellations.
Can I just add? Captain?
And now you are coming with it that it was planned. And if it is planned, then people of the Indigo airline have to be criminally prosecuted by the country.
Captain Randhawa, I was actually speaking to one of the pilots from another airline and including an Indigo pilot a short while back just to get a sense of what's really happening. Correct me if I'm wrong, and Rajiv Mehra can also come in. Niranjan, in fact, it turns out perhaps Indigo should come clean on this entire aspect that during the last 3 days, this is the 4th day that we are looking at the cancellations, were international flights cancelled?
Yeah.
Were international flights cancelled or not?
Some, very few.
And if you look at the bulk of flights that have essentially been cancelled, it turns out that these are flights which are domestic flights.
Yes.
It is also, it seems that there was an artificial scarcity that was basically created so that you're pushing the regulator as well as the ministry on the back foot to take this final call that, okay, go back to the old norms. And I want to ask this, Rajiv Mehra, how long can this be accepted in the sense that there is a limit to the greed that every corporate house essentially has? You are basically crossing the limit. Look at the images that are coming in from across the country. It's a pan-India emergency.
Good evening. The position is that what you are saying is absolutely correct. However, whatever has happened or is happening, I only said on one of the channels yesterday that to become normalcy, we will have to do say a 30-day leverage at the moment, and then that is the end of the story. No
why
more
give that
extension.
leverage? Even why give that 30 days of leverage? Because here, as Captain Randhawa was also pointing out, this is not something that was done overnight. It's a phased manner rollout.
1.5 years. 1.5 years, 18 months.
The point here is
I don't agree with you, Rajiv Mehra. I do not agree with you. No, not at all. You cannot leave them out of the leash.
To me now,
no, not at all. This is not acceptable.
Sir, 1 minute. The problem here is that you are not listening because I am speaking as a neutral person, because we have foreign tourists held up everywhere, and Air India